Hello and welcome to another daily devotion. As this week we close out February, Black History Month, by honoring faith leaders from African American heritage. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say the best, or maybe one of the best known leaders of African American faith tradition, and the founder, really, the roots of Black liberation theology, and Dr. James Cone. I remember in seminary never having heard of Black liberation theology, having to read Cone, Black liberation theology, and the lynching tree. And I remember being so ticked off when I first read it. I'm like, man, this guy's like a black racist. Like, it feels like he's saying, well, because you're white, you're a horrible human being, and you're oppressive, and you're nasty, and these are all the ways you have to change. And at first, I was so defensive and so angry. I'm saying, I can't help it. I was born white. You were born black. There's nothing we can do about that. That's, just who we are genetically. But as I read and tried to be more open-minded to what Cone was saying, he's saying, societally, culturally, without even thinking about it, we label black as evil or bad. Let me give you some examples. You get blackballed and you can no longer play in the league. You get blacklisted and you're out. In cowboys movies and westerns, the bad guys wear black, and the good guys, at least in the old westerns, always wore white. Now it's black and white, so you might argue, well, they didn't have much on this color spectrum. But both in subtle and not subtle ways, black as a color, and he argued that carries over to our stereotypes and prejudices, represents things that are evil or somehow not enough or not good. And the clouds of inferiority that forms on the black community, the struggle. And so he said, using terms of whiteness and blackness, challenge us as people of faith to lose our whiteness. And by whiteness, he didn't mean, lose your skin. Of course not. But he said, any time where you participate in systems or a status quo that isn't fully a level playing field for all races is a challenge to the gospel and not what Jesus would have called us to. And he said, in all effects and purposes, the lynching of black bodies in the American South during the Civil War and Reconstruction period is very much, he said, I want you to think about the crucifixion as a lynching. God's vision of humanity being lynched by human greed, human violence, human protection of what is ours, and a resistance to changing and an openness for equality. The idea that if somebody else is going to prosper, somebody else has to lose. He said that's not God's vision for the world. And so the more I read Cone, the more I appreciated, really tough to get past the initial layers because it's so radical, so jarring, and intentionally so. But at the core level of what he's saying, not too far off from some of the radical teachings of a first century Jew whose skin wasn't like mine either. And I'm very thankful for Cone pushing me to see the world through eyes that, having not lived as a minority or experienced that, I couldn't have seen without him helping me by putting on a different set of glasses and considering and challenging me. And all the things that I've grown up accustomed to say, these are norms, these are how life is. Well, not for everybody. And say, why is that? And what would Jesus have to say about that? So for this now late professor, Dr. James Cone, who died just 3 years back, very grateful for the fire, the wisdom, and the tenacity of a man to continue to push us to reach a place where the dream of the preacher king becomes a reality.